Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to Northtown News Magazine with Avi Myers.
I'm Marty Levinson. You're watching Northtown News.
For the identity of the real Marty Levinson, please stay tuned for the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine. Presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org. We're real big on community policing, and the police department, thank God, in the 24th District, despite limited resources, has been doing their best. Chances are at least 50-50 the commander might show up at your community policing meeting. If you have pictures of graffiti, if you have other photographic evidence of possibly criminal wrongdoing or you're not sure, take a picture. You can mail it to caps24.org. It'll get right in the hands of the community policing force and the commander. You can mail it directly to the commander if you've got his email. Or you can show up at the meeting and show him personally, and he'll tell you exactly what it is. If he's there, and even if he's not, some of the other policemen should be able to tell you. We didn't really get everywhere we wanted to go covering all the judicial elections last time around, and there was so much that happened. There were so many races, and we spent so much time interviewing and covering judges. We had to ask back one of our legal and judicial experts, also somebody who's involved very much within that community. We're talking about Michael Strom. Michael, how you doing?
I'm good, Avi. How you doing?
Good, and a fellow Southsider.
Also true.
Not the Aryan part, just the Southsider. So anyway, you know what? One of the things we didn't hit last time when we were looking at different trends in the election was, I know there's at least two things you want to hit, so let's go to the Ninth Sub-Circuit first.
Yeah, you know, we've always...
And by the way, just so people know, the Ninth Sub-Circuit basically is Evanston, Niles, Lincolnwood, Skokie, West Rogers Park, 49th Ward, well, that's 40, a little bit of Edgewater, not too much, and it goes west a little bit along that way too.
Most of Wilmette, too.
Wilmette, I'm sorry about that. Okay. So, and it's historically it's been pretty predominantly Jewish, but not always.
True, twice.
Okay.
The historic and the not always. You know, I feel like we've always given short shrift to the Ninth, which is ironic since it's the thing that you and I are the most interested in the judicial
That's
elections,
true.
given we're both residents of the Ninth. And I thought that I'd take a look at what's changed in the Ninth over the time that you and I have been talking about it, from 2004 to 2012. One of the things that I think you had mentioned the last time I was out about how many people were voting Republican in the 50th Ward triggered me to start looking at some things, and you know, once you start looking at things, there's no end to it. And as always, I found things I wasn't expecting to find, but that I knew you'd be interested in.
Very good. Now, this time around, just so people know, there were two different races within the Ninth Sub-Circuit. One was a one-on-one race. It was for the vacancy of the late Gerald Bender, one of the greatest, one of the most respected #1 judges from a Jewish standpoint, definitely one of the most respected and one of the greatest. He was Simon Wiesenthal's personal attorney at a pro bono level. Part of that work was taken over by his son, Michael, who is still a judge himself, who was running for his father's vacant position against the man who was appointed, probably with the help of the forces of Shakowski, which is Lionel Jean-Baptiste, who is a black Haitian who put himself through law school, who's a pretty admirable person himself and an interesting guy. The second race, the basic winner was Larry Axelrod, and he basically beat two different women, Mary True, who is a sitting judge, and we actually was just appointed, so she's a judge, period. And the other one was my least favorite person running for judge, and that's Abby Fishman-Romanek. There was also one other candidate who's a really good guy who got his feet wet, and why can't I think of his name? We're in contact. David,
Adams?
Pardon? David Adams, yeah. And as a matter of fact, he happens to, he's not Jewish, but he happens to work for the law firm that he has Alan Greiman and Marv Levitt.
And just for clarification, because Avi gets really wrapped up in what he's saying, when he was referring to Larry Axelrod beating 2 women, he just meant more votes.
Okay, you get an extra minute of TV time for that. Go.
Well, what I was, basically what we started on this was, hey, an awful lot of Republicans voted in the 50th. I think you mentioned maybe a third.
Yeah.
And that is actually missing the lead, because the lead isn't how many people voted Republican in 50. The lead is that nobody voted in 50. The total, if you add the GOP vote, is appalling and historic.
About 4,800 people total.
Less.
Less? Really?
Less. For just over 4,000.
Wow. Hey, the Silversteins did their job as committeemen.
And as you know, Avi, but some of our devoted viewers may not, politically, there is the dominant force in a larger and larger sense is Evanston Township, the Democratic Party of Evanston, with Jan Schakowsky's leadership.
Yeah, that's DPOE.
With their ally in the city, the 49th Ward. So I thought one of the things I'd look
I
at...
wouldn't say ally, I would say underling.
That's you saying that, not me saying that. And historically, there'd been a counterbalance of almost even proportions from Niles Township and the 50th Ward, which tended to vote similarly. So you had these two forces that battled over these judicial openings over a period of years. And there has been an extraordinary change in the voting, although it remains true, you wouldn't know it by influence or votes in these races. Niles has always had more registered voters, and they still do. But what I looked at was in terms of people actually voting in the judicial races. I went back to 2004, where a callow 51-year-old kid with a dream named Michael Strom was foolish enough to get involved in that.
Isn't he the first cousin of Howland Wasserstrom, famous blues singer?
He is actually more, he's the curator.
Oh, okay.
He's the curator. He, when Howland comes to town, he does avail himself of Maelstrom Studios in my home.
Cool.
In any event, if you go back to 2004, which is when you and I first started talking about this sort of thing, if you added up the vote total for Evanston and the 49th Ward in judicial races, it was 17,834 total votes.
17,834, okay.
And if you totaled Niles Township plus the 50th Ward, it was 19,460 votes.
Wow, you know what? When I ran as a Democrat to the Democratic Convention for Gene McCarthy, I actually had 18,610 votes, which is more than some of those numbers.
Yeah.
And I didn't come close to winning.
Sure, but it shows you how misguided people can get.
Yeah, but on 2 levels. But he gets another minute for that, but on 2 levels. Both in Evanston, and Evanston's voters are misguided in the first place, but and voting for me. But yeah, but they didn't know better then. It was a while ago.
It was an innocent time. So I looked at where we're at now, and I looked at how these 4 entities have declined or changed in their voting since 2004, looking at the 2010 and 2012 primaries. Yeah. So in Evanston Township, where you had, really just 8 years ago, you had 12,412 votes in 2012. The total vote there in the judicial race involving Bender and John Baptiste was 9,503. So that's less.
Yeah.
It's down almost 3,000 from 2004 and down only 806 from the previous primary in 2010. Niles, on the other hand, the total vote in Niles was 5,894 in that same race, which puts it down 2,733 from the previous election and a whopping 7,440 from 2004. That's a massive decline in the votes
Massive.
in Niles Township. As for 48 and
We
49,
didn't touch last time how big the drop was, but that's gigantic.
it is. And it's, you know, you can see it's not just some jolting one election thing, because they were down. You'll see these same trends if you go to 2010, which wasn't a horribly low turnout election.
Yeah.
But looking at 48 and 49, I couldn't believe where the numbers were. 49 actually has more votes now than 50. That's never been true. In 49...
Way to go, Silverstein.
That's him talking. 49, the total votes in the judicial race, 3,806. And in case you're wondering, there were 802 votes for Republican ballots in 49.
Which actually is what, about 20%, close to it.
Fair enough. So the decline, 500 or so votes from 2010 and 2,000 and change from 2004. Now, in 50th Ward, total votes in the judicial primary, 2,439.
Yeah.
That's really low, Avi.
It's really low.
That's a decline from 2010 of 2,106. And you go down to 2004, 3,687.
It wasn't that long ago where a Democratic candidate, let's put it this way, a Democratic candidate in the 50th Ward could depend on 5,000 votes no matter what. And that wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, but it's longer ago than 2004, I'll tell you that.
It's
Although 2004, there were a lot of
actually,
candidates.
at that point in time, in mayoral races and that sort of thing, you could depend on. And 2004, yeah, that's when it was starting to decline.
So what does this mean? You're looking for...
I don't mean judicial, I mean in general.
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of the margins that the judicial candidates used to count on from these four sectors, it's a sea change on both of them positive in terms of the margin you're going to get out of the Evanston and 49, and negative for the counterbalancing effect. In this election, for example, the race we're talking about, Bender and Jean-Baptiste, Bender did well in 50, and that netted him a 459 vote margin.
Yeah.
Total votes 1449. I mean, there aren't that many votes, so the margin
1449. That's
1449 for Bender.
Oh.
990 for Jean-Baptiste. So the margin, and that's what you're looking for. You're
Right.
looking for some separation.
Yeah.
50 used to give a lot of candidates in the Bernie Stone era a really big margin, which wasn't available.
At the time, it was close to 50% of the vote in the area.
Well, those were the days.
Yeah.
Right now, the results are somewhat skewed by the Republican vote, but the Republican vote was 1,630 votes. And if you give Michael Bender all of those, it doesn't come close to winning the election. He lost
Right.
by over 5,000 votes. Now,
And let's point out for people who don't know, there probably aren't 60 real Republicans in the 50th Ward.
well, I guess it depends what you need to do to be real. If voting is a criteria, then you're right.
Okay.
Although, I'm curious about this stuff. The last election, and there was a pretty significant senatorial race on the Republican primary.
Yeah.
So they had 961 Republican votes
Okay.
in 2010. So it wasn't just let's all vote goofy and screw up Mitt Romney. Yeah, I mean, all right, it's more, but it's not. It's not like there was nobody here, but it's not the kind of factor that I think at first blush was being touted.
By the way, a number of the religious people in the Jewish community weren't just let's screw up Mitt Romney. Some of these people really want some of the same, basic religious things that some of the Catholics wanted. And I was really surprised. I thought that same thing too initially, but in talking to people, there are people that really wanted their voice heard about what they consider to be the decay of American society. So it wasn't as much of a screw up Mitt Romney, as I would have thought. It really surprised me, to be honest with you.
Well, I think that attitudes are changing, and there's a lot more conservatism in the Jewish community.
Well, there's
as
a whole lot of polarization, period. And, the same way that George Bush created generations of Democrats, Obama's creating generations of Republicans right now.
I'm not so sure of that, and I think that some of that preceded Obama, too. And I think that in general, the Republicans perhaps taking more ownership of the Israel issue than the Democratic leadership at the time. I think that's more of a factor.
Well, that has a lot to do with it. It's true. But, it's more than that, too. Well, it depends what religious circles you go into, because among more modern people, you're not going to find that as much. Among some of the more traditional people or some of the more right-wing religious types, you're going to find that within, Judaism also.
You're going to see that more in 50, where you live, play, and work, and all that stuff. So if you go into Evanston, there's certainly at least as many Jewish folks living in Evanston, but you won't see the same attitudes.
Well, I don't think there's as many Jewish folks living in Evanston, but I think it's against their rules to do anything religious.
Well, that depends on how you feel about Reconstructionism, I guess.
Well, let's put it this way. It's just not a matter of Reconstructionism. There's that synagogue on Ridge where they have a nuclear-free zone.
That's good.
It should really read religion-free zone.
Well, but still, it's good to know you can go to Shul and not get nuked.
Well, it's good to go to Shul and not get nuked, but I still remember when the previous rabbi of that synagogue took off his yarmulke and declared from the pulpit that he didn't believe in God. What a wonderful moment. Let's get back to judgeship. We're running out of time.
Okay. In terms of what the margins are in these various sectors, only 459 votes for Bender net out of 50, and the net for Jean Baptiste in 49. And I can't believe we're even talking about nets in 49, other than the kind that they use to chase some of the residents down. But Jean Baptiste took a 1,500 vote margin out of 49. Wow. So I can't recall 49 being a much more significant factor than 50 in these races.
Interestingly, not that there's a gigantic community that way, but there actually is a Haitian community of sorts, but not 1,500 votes worth in 49, as well as a Belizean community, which is probably somewhere near Haiti, if I remember correctly.
I don't think it's as close as all that, but that having been said, what's the registration? And,
probably 3.
Well, in terms of the township factor, it remains that there's a lot more votes in Niles than there are in Evanston, but you don't see them, which is why
they're not voting. That's true.
Yeah, which is why when I talked with Judge Bender and Judge True about the upcoming election, I said, you really need to get some votes out of Niles. You need to get a lot more votes out of Niles.
We talked about this, and you did tell these people that, that's what you got to do. Let's go into about a minute and a half summary here.
I guess one of the questions is whether this is permanent or whether it is something that's cyclical that's going to turn around. One of the things that's interesting at the same time this is going on is Evanston is so dominant that they can now field 2 candidates, split the vote, and still have one of their candidates win, as happened last time with Larry Axelrod prevailing despite the slated candidate in DPOE being Abby Fishman-Romanek, as happened the election before that, where Gary Cull. In both cases, they took Evanston despite the fact that the committee, DPOE, slated Abby Fishman-Romanek. I'm not sure whether this is something personal with Abby, who on a personal level I like just fine. I don't know what the factors are that's underlaying that. It's possible.
Well, the one person who pushes Abby, and I should really let you finish, so I'm sorry about that.
I guess one of the things that you want to see down the road is whether there is a schism in the leadership in Evanston that's going to change that factor down the road. But in terms of future elections where you're looking at, okay, I'm not going to get Evanston, what do I do? There are 58,000 registered voters in Niles Township.
No. Now, that's a big thing, and that's a lot more people than voted, period, total. In Evanston, just to put it up in summary, basically Jan Schakowsky both times wanted her buddy Abby Fishman-Romanek, and everybody else knew better.
Again, not saying that. Although as you know, I'm fond of Larry Axelrod, and my lawn was bedecked, as was yours, I think, with signs for Judge Bender and Judge Axelrod.
That is 100% correct. But we got to sum up at this point. So anything else you want to?
It's just curious, and this is one of these things where when folks ask me, I say, I don't know. I just look at the numbers and tell you what they are. Why that's happening, I don't know.
Anyway, I want to thank you very much, Michael Strom. Pleasure.